Tonight, Air Canada in reputational damage control. What the airline is saying about refunds, the convoluted journeys home.
Toronto to Lisbon, Lisbon to Porto, and Porto to Gatwick. So we've got quite a few connections to make.
And how the deal compares to the competition. What sparked clashes in the U.S. Capitol, the message protesters had for top Trump officials. And the kind of love that knows no bounds.
I know how much he loves me, that he's willing to go through a rotten, stinky compost pile.
What precious treasures this husband was hunting for in the trash.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. Air Canada is saying tonight most of its flights in Canada and the United States are expected to be back on schedule over the next 24 hours and about 3/4 of its international flights. But that is doing little to quell the anger of passengers whose plans have already been derailed, like an Ontario couple who missed their own destination wedding.
We had maybe 12 hours to figure out what our situation was. We had found out on late Sunday evening that our flight was going to be canceled.
Juan and Becca Lopez received this notice: their trip to Cancun was not going ahead, while some of their 27 guests were already on the way.
Some of the folks that had to come in from other countries as well. There were opportunities that were missed. There were things that were actions that were done that we can't really go back and ask people to replicate.
The couple did get a refund, but plan to ask Air Canada to reimburse them for other wedding expenses they had already paid. We'll get to what Air Canada is saying about those refunds in just a moment, but we begin with new details about what's in the deal and how it stacks up to other airlines. Here's CTV's Adrian Gabriel.
With Air Canada slowly getting its fleet off the ground, industry watchers say parts of the proposed deal will leave some flight attendants deflated.
They won't be able to afford the cost of living and living wage in Toronto and Vancouver.
Air Canada and CUPE have yet to confirm the wage increase being offered, but multiple aviation insiders, including McGill University's John Graddick, say they've seen the numbers.
12% increase immediately for the junior flight attendants, 8% for the more senior flight attendants, and then progressively through the contract, 3.5%, 3%, and then 2.5%.
Though the pay grade for cabin crew with less than 5 years of service will still fall short of what some U.S. carriers offer their staff who work out of major hubs.
If you happen to live in LA, if you happen to live in New York, or happen to live in Chicago, we're giving you an extra $2,000 a month. And that should get you up to a living wage in those cities where you have a high cost of living.
Air Canada flight attendants haven't been receiving an hourly wage while checking in passengers. CTV News has confirmed that the airline is now offering 50% of their hourly rate as ground pay for the first hour of pre-flight work on a narrow-body aircraft and 70 minutes for larger planes. The ground pay rate will increase to 70% by the time the deal expires in 4 years.
The flight attendants at Air Canada felt that this was a negotiating element of their contract that they could get a lot of Canadians to support.
Air Canada's offer of ground pay follows a similar move already made by Delta Airlines in the U.S. It could trigger similar demands by flight attendants at other Canadian carriers. WestJet's contract with its cabin crew expires at the end of the year.
A source tells CTV News that CUPE began presenting Air Canada's offer to their members this morning. Voting is expected to be completed by the end of next week. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Mississauga, Ontario.
And thousands of passengers are still grappling with how to recoup the costs of canceled flights. CTV's Sean Leathong on the challenges and Air Canada's response.
The journey ending in Toronto, passengers arriving after the strikes end with a sigh of relief.
We had to call Air Canada yesterday just to make sure the flights are still on track, and I guess we were lucky.
As they get planes off the ground and in the air, Air Canada is aiming to return to 80% of capacity, but many of those arriving are feeling
Tired, frustrating, but at least they got us where we wanted to be.
After the 3-day strike, direct flights have been hard to find. A canceled flight for Sima Pillay was supposed to be Vancouver to Toronto, but changed to
from Surrey, driving to Seattle, Seattle to St. Louis, staying there for 8 hours, then coming through over here, Toronto Airport.
For those trying to get home,
Not great, I can't lie. Not looking forward to it.
Christopher Field and Sophia Stevens had a direct flight to the United Kingdom.
Now it was Ottawa to Toronto, Toronto to Lisbon, Lisbon to Porto, and Porto to Gatwick. So we've got quite a few connections to make.
We were told that if we don't get this flight, then we won't be home until September the 3rd.
Christina Robertson was supposed to fly Toronto to Edinburgh on Saturday, instead spending 4 days here trying to book another flight.
And every time I'd click on a flight to try and change the flight, it said, no, this is no longer available. Phone Air Canada. And when I phoned Air Canada, they said they had so many calls that they couldn't take any more, and the call was terminated.
Now a longer journey with a stop in Montreal and Dublin before getting home to Scotland, and frustration for the 4 extra days in the city.
It's going to take me about 6 months to be able to kind of pay it all off and save up.
Air Canada says they will cover some costs as they try to lift up their damaged reputation.
So what we've done is we're telling people we're going to reimburse you, if you want to book a flight on your own on another carrier.
But at this point, of the over 500,000 customers that were affected, it's unclear who will qualify.
Air Canada has to pay not just for certain travel expenses, but for all travel expenses incurred by a passenger as a result of Air Canada's failure to rebook them as prescribed by the APPR.
A representative from Air Canada also saying that other modes of transportation may be covered, say a train or a bus, if a flight was canceled, but no word on hotels. Omar.
All right, Sean, thank you. Canada Post and the union representing thousands of postal workers were back at the bargaining table with the union seeking higher wages. The latest proposals include an increase of 19% over 4 years. That is instead of the previous offer of 13% presented by Canada Post in May. Discussions were delayed last week over lack of available federal government mediators. The union says the mediators were too busy with Air Canada negotiations. Meetings are expected to continue this week and next. Talks at Canada Post have been ongoing now for more than a year and a half. Ontario has promised to help industries impacted by U.S. tariffs, including the province's steel sector. But that did not stop the Premier from lashing out at the head of one of Ontario's biggest companies. CTV's Abigail Beeman has been tracking the story and joins us now with more on what Doug Ford had to say today. Abigail.
Omar, Ontario Premier Doug Ford slammed Lorenzo Gonsalves. That's the head of the American company that owns Ontario-based Stelco Steel for his support of Donald Trump's tariffs.
And why doesn't he just stay in the U.S.? Because I'm done with this guy signing letters saying, yeah, bring all the steel down to the U.S., tariff the crap out of Canadians. This is the owner. So remember that, Stelco workers, when your owner comes prancing through your place. He doesn't support you. And I look forward to getting a phone call from him because he has my cell number.
Thank you.
I'm going to blast him.
Ford then apologized for getting heated. At one point, he even mused about buying Stelco. Stelco was purchased by American company Cleveland Cliffs last year. Its CEO has praised Trump's tariffs as recently as Monday, thanking Trump and blaming Canada and Mexico for supporting circumvention schemes. That's the day Trump expanded 50% steel and aluminum tariffs to more than 400 additional categories. The Canadian Steel Producers Association is calling for tariffs on American steel coming into Canada.
Sort of an elbows down approach. There is no room for that in the steel industry today. Those tariffs have to go up as fast as possible.
Steel producers calling the expanded tariffs on everything from lipstick to strollers another death blow for the integrated North American economy. Omar?
All right, Abigail, thanks. A Canadian judge on the International Criminal Court has been slapped with sanctions by the Trump administration for ruling to authorize the court's investigation into U.S. personnel in Afghanistan. Kimberly Prost is the Canadian judge who has been sanctioned. So have 3 other jurists from France, Fiji, and Senegal over the tribunal's decision to investigate Israel's actions in Gaza and the Israeli-occupied West Bank. As a result, any U.S. assets the judges have in the country will be frozen. The court deplored the latest sanctions, part of the Trump administration's escalating fight against the ICC, calling them, quote, a flagrant attack against the independence of an impartial judicial institution which operates under the mandate of 125 countries from all regions. But the U.S. and Israel do not recognize its authority. The State Department today calling the court a national security threat and an instrument for lawfare against the U.S. and its ally, Israel. Israel is calling up to 60,000 reservists ahead of an expanded military operation in the densely populated Gaza City. Israel considers Gaza City one of the final strongholds of Hamas. It's also where hundreds of thousands of displaced people are sheltering. The plan has drawn international condemnation and forced mediators to urgently scramble to try and secure a ceasefire. And a settlement project in the occupied West Bank has been granted final approval by Israel. Palestinians and some human rights groups say the project could destroy hopes for a two-state solution. Much of the international community considers Israeli settlements in the West Bank illegal and an obstacle to peace. Protesters confronted Donald Trump's top officials in Washington today, outraged over the president's move to take over policing in the U.S. Capitol and bring in the National Guard. CTV's Judy Trin with how Trump's team responded.
An angry welcome for three of Donald Trump's top officials as they walked into Union Station to greet members of the National Guard. This week, hundreds of soldiers arrived from Republican states to carry out the president's orders.
We do not have to allow our cities to be taken over by violence and by disorder and by chaos.
The voices that you hear out there, those crazy communists, they have no roots, they have no connections to the city.
But the organizers of this demonstration are from D.C.
We're under a military occupation of our city. This is fascism, this is racism, it's directly targeting Black and brown and working class communities in D.C.
Last week, the president declared a crime emergency in Washington. Trump then took over the local police force and called in the National Guard. The White House says in that time, more than 40 homeless encampments have been dismantled and about 500 people have been arrested. Some of the tense moments were captured on social media. The crimes range from driving under the influence to assault and murder. Others are detained for being in the U.S. illegally.
Sometimes our mere presence has a deterrent effect on criminal activity, and that's really what we're trying to provide.
The guards are patrolling tourist areas and subway stations. The mayor says crime has dropped and there's no need for Trump to take over D.C.
Crime has gone down in our city, and it has gone down precipitously over the last 2 years because of a lot of hard work.
By law, Trump can only use the National Guard for 30 days without congressional approval. But the president has already said he wants an extension to his emergency order. Judy Trin, CTV News, Washington, D.C.
And parts of the American East Coast bracing tonight for Erin, the first hurricane of the season.
We are anticipating coastal flooding from massive waves, tropical storm force winds, and tidal and storm surge for much of the state's shoreline.
North Carolina is now under a state of emergency with numerous evacuation orders issued as the storm brings destructive waves as high as 6 meters and an intense storm surge. The Eye of Erin seen from outer space swirling over the Atlantic Ocean as it moves closer to the U.S. It's also expected to bring strong winds and waves to the Atlantic provinces over the next few days. And in Nova Scotia, crews are keeping an eye on the path of that storm as they continue to battle wildfires ravaging the province. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth caught up with some of those forced to flee the flames torching the Annapolis Valley and learned how they're dealing with the strain.
With the out-of-control Long Lake wildfire possibly heading in this direction, campers were told to pack up and leave.
And we had until 5 o'clock Wednesday to get everything out.
Shelley Wagner came here 2 weeks ago to escape a wildfire burning near her home in Halifax.
And then we get this to deal with. it's just too much.
Jason Freeman is hauling Wagner's trailer to a safe location. Freeman is also a volunteer firefighter.
I helped out with the Shelburne fires back in 2023, so it just brings back memories of that, of people evacuating and the teamwork.
Teamwork in the form of random acts of kindness, like community members dropping off bottles of water for the volunteers.
That's something that can't get enough of.
A steady stream of support from people who are grateful for the work being done to save their homes.
Well, it's good because it could be my house that's in danger.
This wildfire is putting a lot of stress and strain on the entire community. The people who live in this area and have been evacuated have the option of staying at the Red Cross shelter. Evacuee Julie Hannum has chosen to not stay at the shelter. Hannum normally thrives on doing good deeds for others.
I'm not used to having it done for me.
She's keeping busy delivering food to the crews working on the other side of this barrier.
We made 240 subs and we just sent them out.
The work by firefighters and community support will continue until the fire is extinguished.
We need rain, 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 and more rain.
Until then, people in Annapolis County are living with evacuation orders, fear, and a high level of concern as this massive wildfire continues to burn. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, West Dalhousie, Nova Scotia.
Coming up.
This is a new scheme on social media.
How a group of minors caught an alleged child abductor and the warning from police. Plus, allegations against a popular Quebec spa. The RCMP arrested a young Montreal man after a months-long investigation that police say showed he intended to carry out a major terrorist attack. He is facing multiple charges and will appear in court tomorrow.
What we know now is that he had pled allegiance to the Islamic State. He planned to do an attack on behalf of the Islamic State. And the investigation shows up to now that he was planning to get long guns, kind of a AK-47, to do mass casualties.
And a 37-year-old Calgary man is facing numerous charges after the alleged abduction of a 12-year-old boy involved in an online to catch a predator scheme. CTV's Jordan Canagan now on how he was caught and the warning from police.
It was near this area in the Cooper's Crossing neighborhood of Airdrie. A 12-year-old boy escaped from a kidnapper.
There are numerous youth, ages 12, 13, so quite young, that have been involved in a catch the predator scheme. So apparently this is a new scheme on social media.
Police say the boy was part of a group of between 6 and 10 teenagers who arranged to meet a man in a vigilante sting to expose child predators.
These are very hard to prosecute. It puts these people, these kids in this incident, in extremely high-risk, dangerous situations without backup training, justification, and backup. It's amazingly dangerous what happened in this incident.
Investigators say the teens met the man on Snapchat and it was caught on video. Police say the boy willingly got into the vehicle, but the man drove away with the child. The boy was able to escape a short time later. Multiple teens and other witnesses called 911 and police tracked the suspect to northeast Calgary.
This has not been done before here in Airdrie. In my service time of 23 years, I haven't been involved in a similar investigation where we have somebody setting up to catch a predator or anything along those lines. This is a very unique incident.
37-year-old Zane Merchant of Calgary is facing numerous charges, including kidnapping, sexual interference, and breach of conditions. He does have a history with police.
This offender is known to the ICE unit. We've had more than one investigation and file with this offender, which again speaks to the dangerous and high-risk nature of meeting strangers, conversing with strangers.
Jordan Canagan, CTV News, Airdrie.
An emotional day for the family of 8-year-old Jave Roy, who was laid to rest after being fatally struck by a stray bullet.
This is the day where we say see you later, and we're not going to be able to touch, smell, hear him.
Loved ones attending the young boy's funeral today on Ontario's Manitoulin Island. That's where his mother is from. Roy was asleep next to her in their Toronto apartment early Saturday morning when gunfire outside tore into the home and killed him. A popular spa in Chelsea, Quebec is under new legal scrutiny. A woman who claims she was sexually assaulted by a male massage therapist last December has now launched a class action lawsuit on behalf of other potential victims. In a statement, Nordique Spa says it is not commenting on the lawsuit, which still needs to be certified by a judge. Still ahead, fire in the sky. What caused this spectacular display high above Japan? There was a spectacular sight in Japan where a massive fireball lit up the night sky. Multiple cameras caught the particularly bright shooting star as it shot across. Experts say this happens when dust particles or asteroid fragments enter the Earth's atmosphere and glow brightly as they burn up.
And then we fly on a cushion of air over the surface of the water.
And this right here is a sea glider, a winged ferry that could be the future of coastal transportation or serve as a future warship. It is an all-electric flying boat, and the American company that makes it hopes it will carry passengers by 2027. Still ahead, a treasure hunt in an unusual place, the prized possession that had a husband digging deep. We leave you tonight with a story about the power of love and just how far a BC man was willing to go for it. As CTV's St. Alexander explains, he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty.
18 tons of rotting, steaming, stinking compost, and somewhere in this mound might be his wife's wedding rings.
She never takes them off.
But while washing her hands at a restaurant, Janine Van Ijsseldijk realized they had somehow slipped off.
Left the restaurant. I'm like, I can't even wait for the check.
After a frantic search, the couple figured the rings must have slipped off into the compost. But by now, the garbage had already been collected.
I said I'd go to the dump in the morning and ask them if I could go through the compost pile.
He said, let me try. I said, okay.
In other words, just about everyone, including Denny Webster at the Mission Sanitary Landfill, thought this was a lost cause.
My brain was trying to figure out a way to tell him to go buy his wife new wedding rings.
However, admiring the dedication,
I was grabbing it from there.
Webster dug out smaller piles for Steve Van Ijsseldijk's smelly treasure hunt.
When he has something on his mind, he makes sure he does it.
Bit by bit, he began to recognize his own waste. A popcorn bag, he yelled out.
Oh, there's my sausages.
And if you can believe it, he suddenly had one ring. And within an hour, he had them both.
And it was all slimy with popcorn and butter.
So he called his wife and told her the news.
She basically broke down crying, cried all the way home, she said.
Well, yes, because I know how much he loves me, that he's willing to go through a rotten, stinky compost pile.
I don't think he really believed that he had found it, even though he had them both in his hands.
The chances of a happy ending were unlikely.
It's not the money, it's the sentimental value.
It's the money.
But Van Ijsseldijk refused to believe the impossible.
I think he would have dove in here if I wasn't here.
St. Alexander, CTV News, Mission.
Now that should inspire all husbands to up their game. Great work. That is a snapshot of this Wednesday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.